Have you ever felt your mind in chaos the moment you opened your eyes? The alarm rings, you hit snooze. Just 5 more minutes, but then 30 minutes pass. Your eyes still burning, and your hand already scrolling through a flood of news, messages, and social media. Then you realize you're late. You jump out of bed in a rush, exhausted, your mind pulled in every direction, except inward. This is what happens when we lack inner discipline, a core principle of Stoicism. Inner discipline isn't rigidity. It's the ability to govern your thoughts, manage your emotions, and avoid being dragged along by unconscious habits. Every morning is a battlefield, and your greatest opponent is always yourself. But if you begin the day with a steady mind, free from distractions, you not only increase your productivity, but also gain a deep sense of peace. Today's script will guide you through 11 practical lessons to train your mind each morning in the Stoic spirit. Clear, simple, and ready to apply to daily life. 1. Choose one virtue each day. Each morning as you wake up, the world remains the same, but you are given a new opportunity, the chance to choose how you will live that day. To the Stoic, virtue is not an abstract ideal to hang on a wall or invoke during moral debates. Virtue is the compass that guides even the smallest action, the instrument that trains the will and keeps the mind from being swept away by fleeting emotions. This is why choosing one virtue each morning becomes one of the most important practices. Imagine entering the day as a warrior stepping into battle. Before the fight, you cannot carry every weapon. You choose just one, but it is the one you will use in every situation. Likewise, each morning, you need only choose one quality to cultivate, perhaps patience, honesty, courage, or temperance. Don't be greedy and try to master them all, for like light scattered in many directions, none will shine clearly. But if you focus on one, each moment in the day becomes a concrete exercise, a real opportunity to apply it and grow. Say you choose patience. On your way to work, you hit traffic. Instead of frowning, sighing, or blaming others, you recall, "This is the lesson I chose this morning." You slow your breath, observe your emotions, and let them pass like clouds. When a co-worker is late or makes a mistake, instead of reacting impulsively, you hold back and respond with calm. Each of these moments, rather than being nuisances, become your training ground, and your mind, instead of drifting aimlessly, is anchored by a clear intention. What's remarkable is that when you live one day guided by a single virtue, you no longer need to ask yourself what to do in every situation. The virtue becomes your answer. It steadies you amid emotional storms, surprises, and challenges. Like a spiritual anchor, it keeps you from being swept away by forces beyond your control. And then, at day's end, when you reflect, you realize you didn't just get through the day. You grew, not by luck, but through a conscious choice made at dawn. 2. Distinguish what you can and cannot control. In Stoic philosophy, no lesson is simpler and none more profound than the clear distinction between what we can control and what we cannot. This invisible boundary shapes the entire quality of our inner life. Once our minds are no longer tied to what lies beyond our reach, we feel lighter, calmer, and stronger. Because worry, frustration, and helplessness often arise from trying to change things we do not command. Other people's attitudes, outcomes of our efforts, the weather, or the unexpected events of the day. Picture a morning where you're preparing for an important presentation. You can control your speech, your preparation, the clarity of your voice, and how well you dress. But you can't control whether the audience pays attention, if someone interrupts, or if the projector fails at the last minute. If your focus is consumed by what you can't control, you begin the day anxious, tense, and uncertain. But if you return to what is yours, your preparation, your readiness, your adaptability, you enter the day grounded with inner strength. The Stoic does not avoid hardship, nor do they surrender to fate. They invest their energy wisely, doing their best within their sphere of responsibility and accepting the rest as a natural part of life. As Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." This is not surrender, it is true freedom. Because when you're no longer dragged by things you cannot change, you can give your full attention to the things you can. A simple yet powerful practice is to write down 3 things each morning that you will consciously take control of. How you respond to criticism, how you spend your morning hours, or your mindset under pressure. And 3 things you will release: gossip, bad forecasts, or mental assumptions. As you build this habit, you'll notice your mind no longer torn apart by the unpredictable. You'll live more intentionally, with more self-mastery. And above all, you'll stop feeling like a victim of life. Because in the end, life is always uncertain. But within that uncertainty, there remains solid ground: yourself, your thoughts, your choices, and the Stoic never wastes energy on what they do not command. They direct all attention to the one place they can change: themselves. Once you learn this, you won't just start your day with strength, you'll begin to truly live. 3. Remember, you will die. Memento Mori. In all Stoic life philosophies, no reminder is as simple yet as powerful as the phrase Memento Mori. Remember, you will die. At first glance, it may sound grim, but in truth, it is a call to awareness. It's not meant to scare you, but to bring you back to the present. It doesn't say that you'll lose everything, but reminds you that you possess something profoundly valuable: time. And if this truth truly sinks in, it can completely transform how you live each day. Most people live as if they have endless time. They delay what matters, waste hours on trivial frustrations, and let meaningful relationships drift in silence. They leave conversations unspoken, dreams unstarted, apologies and "I love you" buried under layers of busyness. But if you begin your morning with the honest thought that today could be your last, then every action gains meaning, every interaction becomes whole, and every choice feels vital. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This is not a form of spiritual punishment, but a mirror that illuminates the soul. When you wake and remind yourself that death is inevitable, you begin to cherish the morning coffee, the sunlight through the window, the voice of a loved one, and the quiet moment you share with yourself. You're less drawn into meaningless arguments, less disturbed by judgment, and more willing to forgive, because you understand that any meeting might be the last. Practicing Memento Mori each morning doesn't require you to become gloomy or afraid. On the contrary, it helps you live more deeply and be more present. Just one quiet minute reflecting on the fragility of life can still your mind and bring clarity. What truly matters will rise to the surface, while petty distractions will naturally sink away. When you live with the awareness that time is finite, you no longer delay living in line with your values. You act with courage, speak with kindness when it counts, and let go of burdens that aren't yours to carry. And at the end of the day, you'll be able to say to yourself, I live today as if it were my last. Not in panic, not with regret, just with full, conscious presence. That is the spirit of Memento Mori. 4. Train the body. In Stoic philosophy, training the mind is never separate from training the body. They understood that a strong mind must be cultivated within a sturdy vessel, not for appearance or athletic achievement, but for self-control, endurance, and the discipline forged through daily motion. When you force yourself to rise earlier than usual, leave the comfort of warm blankets, and move your body even when it feels sluggish. This is more than just exercise. It is an act of will. You don't have to be an athlete, nor follow a strict regimen. You only need to dedicate a few minutes each morning to wake your body. Some stretches, a short plank, a walk around the block, or even just a few deep breaths in a grounded posture. What matters is not intensity, but whether you overcome the pull of laziness, whether you resist the voice saying, I don't feel like it, at the start of the day. Each time you do, you send a clear signal to yourself. I control my body, I'm not led by emotion, and I can act even without motivation. These small movements, though seemingly minor, create a significant effect. Your body releases endorphins, positive hormones that ease stress and elevate mood. Your heart rate rises, your breath deepens, and your mind awakens. In this state, you enter the day with both physical energy and mental clarity. You make sharper decisions, you're less reactive, and you stay more grounded in the commitments you made that morning. The Stoics viewed physical training as a form of mental training. Because every time you feel sore, tired, and continue anyway, you are strengthening your will, building your inner fortitude. When you push past your own resistance to complete a morning routine, you're also more likely to overcome mental obstacles later. Procrastination, impulsive reactions, or sudden anger. You don't train your body to prove anything to the world, but to prove to yourself that you can do hard things daily with intention. And that is why the Stoic begins the day with action, with movement, with an unspoken affirmation. I do not live by emotion, I live by reason, and my reason begins in the body I command. 5. Journaling. To the Stoic, journaling is not a romantic indulgence or an artistic habit. It is a tool of practice, a sharp blade used to cut through the dust of thoughts, emotions, and unconscious reactions. Journaling is not simply recording what happened, but an act of pausing to look inward, to engage in an honest dialogue with oneself. When you put pen to paper, you're not just recounting a day, you are probing the blind spots of the mind, identifying habits, and shaping your next actions. Stoics often ask themselves 3 questions each morning or evening. What did I do well today? Where did I fail? And what can I do better tomorrow? These 3 questions are simple, yet if answered honestly, they reveal how you are truly living. Journaling does not require you to be a good writer, nor do you need to perform for anyone. You only need to be sincere. Perhaps you write that you lost patience with a coworker this morning, or that you handled a setback better than usual. Each line is a small mirror, reflecting you back to yourself without judgment. This practice helps you slow down amidst the fast pace of modern life. Instead of being swept up by waves of information, concerns, and unnamed emotions, you sit down, look at them directly, and call them by name. That very act returns control to you. You stop reacting automatically and begin to act with intention. You also begin to see patterns. What triggers your anger, when you tend to lose focus, or which days you feel strongest. From there, you adjust. Not to become perfect, but to move closer to your best self. A morning journal doesn't need to be long. Just 5 minutes, a pen, a page. Write down a question, an observation, a reflection. You might begin with a simple line, "I feel tired." But as you continue, you may discover what's weighing on you or realize what needs to change for a better day. Over time, you'll see journaling not just as a habit, but as a method of living more consciously, with greater steadiness and kindness toward yourself. The Stoic writes to understand, to learn, to grow. Not to document the past, but to deliberately shape the future. And in a noisy world, your little notebook might just be the quietest place to return to. Every day. 6. Practicing gratitude and forgiveness. In the Stoic path of training the mind, 2 practices may seem gentle, yet carry the greatest power to liberate: gratitude and forgiveness. These are not sentimental emotions meant to beautify the soul, but deliberate acts that require awareness and inner commitment. While the world outside encourages you to seek more, to hold tighter, or to react harshly to pain, the Stoic chooses another way, learning to value what is present and to release what no longer belongs, especially negative emotions like resentment, blame, or guilt. Gratitude begins with the smallest things. A warm cup of tea in your hand, a roof that holds the heat, a morning without rain, or simply the fact that you woke up and can breathe. When you pause each morning to write down 3 things you're grateful for, you are training your mind to see the full side of the glass instead of focusing on lack or injustice. While society may pull you into comparison, feelings of inadequacy, or the chase for more, gratitude draws you back to the present, helping you see that you are surrounded by things of value that you may have overlooked just yesterday. Alongside gratitude is forgiveness, a practice that demands more courage because it involves accepting a wound. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting someone's wrongdoing or minimizing harm. Forgiveness means you choose to stop carrying that pain into today. When you withhold forgiveness, you punish no one. You're simply holding a burning coal, hoping it harms someone else, while it burns you instead. Forgiveness is the conscious decision to put the burden down. It doesn't require a conversation, an apology from the other person, or even their awareness. You only need to sit down, write what you want to say, and in your heart, choose to forgive. Practicing this each morning will quietly but deeply lighten your mind. When you start the day with gratitude and end the past with forgiveness, you are no longer pulled backward by what has happened, nor ruled by a sense of lack. You are present, you are enough, and you are free. In a world of wounds and expectations, a person who can be grateful for what they have and forgive what they cannot change is someone who has truly mastered their inner life. And that is the most refined expression of a trained mind. 7. Begin in silence. Morning is a special time, not only because it marks the beginning of a new day, but because it's when the human mind is most impressionable. Right after waking up, the boundary between the subconscious and the conscious is still thin. emotions are unstable, and thoughts are not yet focused. It is in that moment that, if you are not careful, you can be swept into the rush of life before asking yourself one simple question: how do I truly want to live today? That is why the Stoic begins the day in silence. No phone, no news, no conversation. Just a few minutes of sitting still, doing nothing, not trying to be productive, not trying to achieve anything. Those seemingly useless 3 to 5 minutes are in fact the gateway to returning to yourself. It is the time to reset your breath, letting it deepen and steady. It is the time to notice your inner state, perhaps a bit of tension, anxiety, or lingering sadness from the day before. And it is also the time to learn to accept everything as it is, without rushing to fix or judge. Silence is not an escape from life, but a preparation for it. A warrior does not enter the battlefield in a state of panic. They pause, observe, and maintain composure before acting. Likewise, the Stoic does not allow the external world to dictate their inner state. They reclaim agency from the very first minutes of the day. When you sit still and quiet, you send a message to your brain. I am awake, I am not driven by habit or technology, and I will choose how I live this day. The Stoic believes the inner life is the calmest refuge in a turbulent world. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." So instead of letting external noise wake you, let inner silence be the first thing you encounter. Because if you cannot master the first moment of the day, chances are the rest of it won't truly belong to you either. Silence is the foundation for beginning to live, rather than merely react. And in that silence, the Stoic sharpens the sword of reason before stepping out to face life. 8. Negative visualization. Premeditatio Malorum. While most people begin their day with hopeful expectations, wishing that all will go well, the Stoic takes a different approach. They begin by imagining what might go wrong. Not because they are pessimistic or live in fear, but because they understand that life is filled with uncertainties, and if you prepare your mind in advance, nothing can truly shake your calm. This is the essence of Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils, one of the core practices for building mental resilience. Each morning, before you dive into your tasks, take a few minutes and ask yourself, what might go wrong today? It could be a meeting getting cancelled, a colleague behaving uncooperatively, traffic making you late, or simply a sudden drop in mood. Visualize these not to worry yourself, but to prepare mentally. So if they do occur, you won't panic or overreact. When you've already anticipated a difficulty, you receive it as a natural part of the journey, not as a catastrophic surprise. This is not negative thinking. It is a form of inner training. Elite athletes often use mental rehearsal to visualize worst-case scenarios, injuries, defeats, crucial mistakes. Not to surrender, but so that if those moments come, they already know how to stay calm and respond. Similarly, the Stoic uses Premeditatio Malorum as a mental drill, keeping the nerves steady, the emotions contained, and the reason in charge. This practice offers another benefit. It motivates action. When you imagine that your online meeting might get disrupted, you'll check your connection in advance and prepare a backup plan. When you consider the possibility of resistance during a presentation, you'll refine your arguments and rehearse how to respond calmly. In this way, Premeditatio Malorum doesn't remain in the realm of thought. It leads to concrete behavior, helping you act with foresight rather than react under pressure. 9. Act immediately. There is a subtle trap that many people fall into every morning, waiting for inspiration. They believe they must feel ready before beginning work, must feel excited before working hard, must be in a good mood before behaving rightly. But the Stoic understands one simple and profound truth. Emotions come and go. Action is what shapes a person. You don't need to feel like doing it. You just need to do it. And once you act, positive emotions will naturally follow. Every morning when the alarm goes off, you face two choices. Stay in bed for 5 more minutes, waiting to feel alert, or get up immediately and do the first thing you know is right. It could be washing your face, reading a short passage, or opening your computer and writing a few lines. That small act, though simple, is your first victory of the day. And once you've started, everything else becomes easier. That's why Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, remind yourself, I wake up to do the work of a human being." The Stoic does not place value on fleeting emotions, but on disciplined behavior. Therefore, they don't wait to feel motivated before beginning. They begin and let action guide the mind. They understand that action is the only thing truly within their control, while emotion, no matter how real, is only a temporary wave. When you act, your brain releases dopamine, which brings satisfaction and fuels momentum. That's why the longer you delay, the heavier you feel, but once you begin, everything becomes lighter. Practicing act immediately each morning is a way to train your reflex against delay. You are reprogramming your mind to understand that the best time to begin is not when I feel ready, but right now. This doesn't mean doing everything hastily or without thought. On the contrary, it is deliberate action, the first symbolic step that reminds you that you are in charge of your life. The Stoic does not live by emotion, they live by reason. And reason always begins with one small action, one first step. Don't wait for motivation to come. Begin, and you will create motivation. That is how they live. Every morning, every decision, every action, with intention, firmness, and no hesitation. 10. Love your fate. Amor Fati. One of the most profound principles of Stoic philosophy is Amor Fati. Love your fate. Not merely accepting what happens, Amor Fati is about embracing everything, good or bad, as a necessary part of one's life journey. The Stoic does not settle for passive endurance. They actively transform adversity into fuel for training the mind, like fire turning everything thrown into it into light and heat. They don't just say, I can endure this, but rather, I need this to grow. Imagine you have an important morning ahead, but then your computer crashes, your meeting is cancelled, or a downpour stops you in your tracks. The natural reaction is frustration, complaint, or discouragement. But for the Stoic, this is the training ground for the day. They don't ask, why me? They ask, what is this teaching me? By asking the right question, they open the door to transform the situation. From victim to learner, from passive recipient to active respondent. Amor Fati does not mean denying pain or pretending everything is fine. It demands a radical honesty with reality, coupled with the active decision to love the entire experience, not just the pleasant parts. When you apply Amor Fati in the morning, You stop seeing inconveniences as setbacks and start seeing them as raw material for inner strength. A broken-down car can teach patience. A rejection may become an opportunity to build resilience. An unpleasant moment can be a chance to practice temperance. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the core spirit of Amor, Fati. When you begin to see everything that happens as part of the path you are meant to walk, life no longer pushes you around. You start walking with it. Each morning, when something unwanted occurs, instead of reacting as usual, try saying to yourself, "Good, this is what I needed." That sentence won't erase the difficulty, but it will completely shift your mental stance within it. Practicing Amor Fati consistently will change the way you see the world. You'll resist less, blame less, and begin to collaborate with reality. You will no longer live clinging to a fantasy of how things should be, but find meaning in how they truly are. Every challenge and obstacle becomes a lesson, and you, the resilient student, move closer each day to a peace not dependent on circumstances. That is the quiet but enduring beauty of Amor Fati. To love this life, not because it is always pleasant, but because it is always worth living fully. 11. Read and reflect on one quote. The Stoic does not live by theory. They live by reminders. In the modern world, where our minds are easily scattered by news, social media, and a flood of unsolicited noise, a timely quote, short, profound, and well-directed, can serve as a guiding compass for the entire day. That is why reading and reflecting on a quote each morning is so important. It is not a superficial ritual or a way to seem deep, but a small act meant to recalibrate your inner direction, like adjusting your compass before stepping into a dense forest. When you wake up, your mind is like a blank page, easily imprinted by whatever it encounters first. If the first thing you do is check your phone, read messages, consume negative headlines, or scroll through social media, then you're allowing the outside world to write on your mind with chaotic ink. But if you begin with a wise quote from Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, or Epictetus, you're choosing a different start, one of awareness, intention, and guiding strength. Choose a short quote. It doesn't need to be long or filled with lofty philosophy. It just needs to be true. For example, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. After reading, don't rush past it. Sit with it for a moment. Ask yourself, what is this saying to me today? Maybe yesterday you let emotion govern your actions. Maybe you're worrying about something beyond your control. And maybe that one sentence is enough to wake you up, help you realize you've been swept away, and gently bring you back. Reflection should not stay in thought alone. It should translate into action. You can write the quote on a slip of paper and place it on your desk, or save it in your phone and revisit it midday. Each time you read it is a reminder that you've chosen to live with direction, not to be pulled by distractions. And from there, each action, each word, each response in your day begins to shift, not according to fleeting feelings, but in line with the principle you've chosen. When I began practicing Stoic principles in the morning, the first thing I noticed wasn't a dramatic transformation or a spike in productivity. It was the quiet return of a sense of control. I no longer entered the day being pulled by emails, appointments, or unnamed emotions. but stepped into it as someone intentional, knowing what I was doing and why. Small actions like sitting in silence for a few minutes, writing down a single virtue, or reading one thoughtful quote seemed simple, yet carried a quiet and profound impact. They helped pull me out of unconscious reactivity and back into a mindful state where every action is guided by values, not fleeting emotions. If this content has given you a new perspective, a small spark of inspiration, or simply a quiet space to reflect, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss future content. Remember, you don't need to wait for life to be calm before living consciously. Just one morning guided by reason is enough to plant the seed for a day lived fully. See you in the next video.